are watching you. They might not ever say anything, but people on your job are watching you. They might not say anything, but people in your family are watching you. People in your friend circle are watching you. People are watching you, and your standard of living. Hi friends, E.C. Maltby here, Senior Pastor of the True Holiness Saints Center in the beautiful city of Conway, Arkansas. And you know what time it is. It is Wednesday Word time. So what is our Wednesday Word for tonight, Pastor Maltby? Our Wednesday Word for tonight is attributes. So why are we talking about attributes tonight? Let me begin tonight with our social media quote. It's going to lead our discussion tonight. So if you're writing notes, write this down. Social media quote is simply this: having the right attributes help you to become the best version of yourself. Now that's good teaching. Having the right attributes helps us to become the best version of ourselves. And on this simple backdrop tonight, I want to share with you 3 attributes that I think every Christian should passionately pursue. I want to talk about 3 attributes that all of us should seek after on a continual basis. So what is the first attribute that every Christian should pursue? Attribute number 1 is simply this: self-discipline. Regardless to popular opinion, God expects his children to live disciplined lives. He expects his children to have a daily regimen of success. He expects his children to exhibit self-control and restraint. God expects his children to live disciplined lives. I love the way the Apostle Paul says it in 1 Corinthians 9:27. Paul says these words. He says, "No, I strike a blow to my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not become disqualified from the prize." What was Paul talking about disqualified? Don't get it twisted. Paul was not being concerned about being disqualified from his salvation. That's not what Paul was talking about. But here's what Paul was really saying. Paul was basically saying he keeps his own body under subjection so he won't lose his credibility. He's keeping his own body under subjection so he won't lose his influence over people. Paul kept his own body under subjection, not because he thought he was going to go to hell, but Paul kept his own body under subjection because he didn't want to lose God's divine favor on his life, the opportunities and the platforms that God had given him. He didn't want God to begin to close the doors of influence in his life. And if we want to be Christians who have influence, Christians that have credibility with others, if we want to be Christians that walk in God's divine favor, it's going to take discipline. It's going to take a daily regimen of habits that bring success. It's going to take both restraint and self-control. Why is discipline so important? Not only does it give you credibility, not only does it provide God's favor on your life, but it makes sure that you stay healthy. Somebody ought to type the word healthy in the comment section. It makes sure that you stay healthy spiritually. Self-discipline makes sure you stay healthy physically, but it also makes sure you stay healthy mentally. Self-discipline keeps our credibility intact. It keeps God's divine favor on our life, and it keeps us healthy, mind, body, and soul. We're just talking about the attributes that every Christian should be pursuing. So the first one is self-discipline. But here's the second attribute: having a godly standard of living. Having a godly standard of living. If you don't get anything else that Pastor Maltby says tonight, get this next phrase: people are watching you. They might not ever say anything, but people on your job are watching you. They might not say anything, but people in your family are watching you. People in your friend circle are watching you. People are watching you, and your standard of living matters. The Apostle Paul says these words in 1 Timothy 4:12. And this is one of my absolute favorite scriptures. When I was just a boy preacher at the age of 16, I took this scripture as my mantra. I took this scripture as a guiding point or guiding post in my life. 1 Timothy 4:12 says these words. Don't let anyone look down on you because you're young, but set the example for the believers. Set it in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. Speech, conduct, love, faith, and purity. If you're going to have a godly standard of living, it's going to be in these 5 areas of your life. First of all, the Apostle Paul says speech. And despite what you think, the things you say matter. The Bible talks about that the power of life and death is in your tongue. And what you say impacts your Christian influence in this world. So the question becomes, when you speak, are you typically positive or negative? When you speak, are you typically a person who encourages or discourages? When you speak, do you typically lift people up, build them up, or do you typically tear them down? Your speech matters. The power of life and death is in your tongue. But secondly, it talks about your conduct. And I know the world wants everybody to live the way they want to live, but there is still a standard of godly living. Your conduct matters. The things you do matter, and they impact your Christian influence. And when I talk about conduct, I talk about it on 3 levels: activities, attitudes, and associates. Now that's good. Activities, attitudes, and associates. What do you mean activities, Pastor Maltbia? It's all about the places you go and the things you do. Your activities matter. Maybe you ought to pause and ask yourself the question, before you involve yourself in that activity, before you go to that place, maybe you ought to ask yourself, is this going to help or hinder my Christian influence? Activities matter, where you go and what you do. But your attitude matters. Do you have a pleasant attitude, or do you have a foul attitude? Do people enjoy interacting with you, or would they rather avoid you like the plague? Your attitude matters. Nobody wants to see somebody that's so holy that they can't speak to you. They're so holy that they can't relate to an average person. Your attitude matters. It's about activity. It's about attitude. And it's about associates. Who are you voluntarily spending your time with? Because the people you spend time with matters. I was told as a young boy, birds of a feather flock together. The Bible talks about that we should never be unequally yoked with unbelievers. The people you associate with, the people you voluntarily hang around, it matters. It all speaks to your standard of living. It's about speech, it's about conduct, but then it's about love. And there's so many things that we can say about love, but I'll just mention 3 real quick. Love is kind, love is patient, and love is forgiving. Are you a kind person? Are you a patient person? Or are you always just blowing up and going off and getting an attitude? And do you forgive other folks like you want God to forgive you? Love is a part of your Christian standard of living. And then it says faith. And when I talk about faith, I ask you one simple question. Do you trust God enough to do things His way? Do you trust God enough when things are not going the way you want them to go to follow godly principles anyway? Do you trust God enough to take the next step even when you can't see the next step? It's all about faith. It's all about love. It's all about conduct. And it's all about speech. And the last one, and I'm moving on, it's about purity. Purity has become a dirty word in our society. But God says that the pure in heart are those who are going to see him. And when I think about purity, I just want to say it on one level. What about your thoughts? Are they pure? The things you allow in your eye gate, in your ear gate, are they pure? Because it's all a part of your standard of living. The attributes that every Christian should follow: self-discipline, and having a godly standard of living. And I'm through with it. Here's the last one: having resolve. Having resolve. What do you mean, Pastor Montbier, resolve? I'm talking about you've got to be a person who refuses to give up no matter what. Having resolve. Maybe you ought to type this in the comment section. Quitting is not an option. That's somebody's word. When it comes to your marriage, quitting is not an option. When it comes to raising your kids, quitting is not an option. When it comes to coming out of debt and reaching your goals and dreams, quitting is not an option. When it comes to your walk with God, quitting is not an option. Paul says it this way in Galatians 6 and 9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we don't give up. You've got to continue doing the things that you know you're supposed to do, even when no one says thank you. You've got to continue to do the things you do, even when no one seems to appreciate your effort. You've got to continue to do the things you do, even when you don't see tangible results. Don't quit. Quitting is not an option. In fact, you've got to have enough reserve or enough resolve that when tough times come, you refuse to quit. When tough times come, we've got to refuse to quit. We've got to have that type of resolve. But on the other end of the spectrum, you've got to have enough resolve that when things get boring, you refuse to quit. Sometimes when it comes to the mundane things of life, the ordinary things of life, the things that don't excite you but are very important to your success, you've got to have enough resolve that even when I'm bored, silly, I'm still going to get the job done because it's all a part of the process. Today's Wednesday word is attributes. The attributes that every Christian ought to pursue in their life. We've got to pursue self-discipline. We have got to pursue a godly standard of living. And we have got to pursue. You've got to pursue having a resolve. Dear hearts, don't you dare give up. Listen, friends, I am so excited that True Holiness is back in in-person worship. That's right, friends, we are back in the sanctuary. So I want to invite each of you to True Holiness Saints Center on Sunday morning. Sunday, we're going to have one service at 11 o'clock. You can come be with us in person. And if you want to be a part of the in-person service, there are 3 things I'm going to ask you to do. Number 1, wear your mask. Number 2, be prepared to get your temperature checked. And number 3, remember social distancing. But we're going to be here. So get here a few minutes early so you can pick you the perfect seat. But Sunday morning, we'll be back in the sanctuary again. And truth of the matter is this. Maybe you're not ready to come back to the sanctuary. Maybe you want to be cautious just a little while longer. And I understand that. And so if you're not ready to come back to the sanctuary, then I encourage you to continue to watch us on all of our social media platforms. We're going to be live online Sunday morning at 11 o'clock. And the final thing I'd say to you is this, because everybody's asking me, well, Pastor Maltby, what are we going to do with our life groups? What are we going to do with the men's Sunday school and the women's groups? All of our life groups will begin Sunday morning at 9 a.m. This Sunday morning from 9 to 10 a.m., and it will continue to be on Zoom. Listen, my friends, until we speak Sunday morning, be blessed.